Hello there. Have you ever wondered why you feel so alone? Maybe you were raised in the Jehovah's Witness organization. Maybe you have been shunned, disfellowshipped, disassociated, and you're feeling so lonely. And especially during this time of the holidays, feeling really, really lonely. And you want to sort of decode it and wonder, like, why am I feeling this way? Where is this actually coming from? So there's a big difference in being alone and then feeling lonely, right? So sometimes people are just described as like, oh, or they might describe themselves like, oh, I'm just lonely. I'm just a lonely person. But you can't be a lonely person. You can't be a lonely person. It's not an actual state of being. Being alone, that's a state of being. But being lonely is more of a feeling. And where does it come from? So if you think about it and you were raised as a witness, we spent time alone, but we were never really alone, because even when we were alone, we still thought that God was watching us all the time. Satan was always trying to tempt us. We were never actually alone. And so now, if you're outside of the religion, you might think to yourself, I just feel so lonely. And here's what happens is when we are alone all by ourselves, the thoughts that we're thinking, thoughts like, and I wrote down a couple of them, that maybe maybe if you're shunned, you're going to think that, like, I'm a disgrace. I messed up. I'm unlovable. I'm worthy of death. I don't deserve to be here. I deserve to have a miserable life. Um, I'm a horrible person. I mean, there's all sorts of things that you could tell yourself, because that's what the elders and the whole congregation told you, right? Like, you are being shunned because you are bad. You are a bad person. You need to get yourself together, and then you come back, and then you'll be acceptable. But right now, you are unlovable. And so when you are alone, what are you telling yourself? Are you telling yourself that you're unlovable? Are you telling yourself that you messed up, that you don't know how to do this right, that you'll never make it, that you're a bad person? Like, what are you really saying to yourself? Because if you think about it, I mean, if I was telling myself those things all the time, I wouldn't want to be with myself either. So there's a difference with being alone and being okay with it, and then being alone and being totally fine with it. Because when you're telling yourself good things and nice things and sweet things, then you don't have a problem being alone, because you're alone with your thoughts a lot, right? So if you're all by yourself and you're thinking all these bad things, it's no wonder that people want to escape it and they have a problem with being alone, because there's all these thoughts going on. I wouldn't want to be with me either if I was thinking that. So if you like your own company, I've heard, I don't know, somebody quote, that's a quote from somebody. If you like your own company, then you're never alone. And it's very true. Yeah. I mean, if you're having great thoughts about yourself and about your life, it's like, oh, we're having fun. Like, this isn't so bad. I don't mind being alone, right? So, yeah. So yeah, just think about it. Like, in the past, we felt like we always had people around us. We would go to meetings 3 times a week. We would have Sunday dinners. We'd go to some nasty potlucks. We would go to the Grange for, do you guys ever go to the Grange? It's so funny. For square dances and weddings and baby showers and things like that. We were never alone. There was always something going on. As a Jehovah's Witnesses, it was very social. And in fact, I think that my mom, she really loved the organization for that, because she was a real social person. And so, yeah, we were never alone. I mean, if we were, my mom, we would go drive to go see her friends, go to her friend's house, and she would go to oil paint and quilt and visit her friends and have coffee and talk and have dinner and just show up out of the blue. I mean, it was a very, very social situation, religion, which, okay, but now that you're out of it, it's like, if you want to fill that up, I don't know if that's really possible. I don't know if it's even the right thing to do, because I think with us being in the religion, we were taking so much away from ourselves. We were constantly distracted from ourselves. And so now when we're like all by ourselves with all of these thoughts, it's like, oh, that's pretty heavy, right? So, yeah, if you have been disfellowshipped, removed, deleted, what do they call it? Canceled, removed. I can never keep up with all these words. Like, I tell you what, like, I was born in 75 and this religion has changed so much since I was a little kid that I can't keep up with it. But yeah, we always had something to do. We always had friends to go see. Friends, right? And we also had the faithful and discreet slave, the governing body, always giving us the food at the proper time. Yeah, right. And so even if we felt like alone, they would tell us, you have this great big brotherhood, and you could watch jw.org, and you could read some books. We had this feeling like we were never alone, even when we were actually alone. And that's because of the thoughts that we had in our head. Back then, we had the thought of like, Jehovah's always with us. God is always with me. Satan's always watching me. So we were never actually alone. So it's a trip being out here on the outside of it. And do you remember when you were a witness, if you would go to a kingdom hall that was outside of your own, kingdom hall or territory, and people would just come up, they would just love bomb you, right? Like they would just, oh, you're here at our meeting, like, oh, you're one of us. We were never alone. Even if you just showed up minding your own business, people are going to be all up in your business at those meetings if they have never seen you before. So yes, we were never alone, and we knew exactly what to do to not feel alone. So now just be really careful about the thoughts that you're thinking about yourself, and ask yourself if you're telling yourself that you are unlovable, or you are sinful, or you're a bad person. Really question yourself. Like seriously, write that out. Look at that sentence that you just wrote and really question it. Get really curious with yourself. This is something that is actually optional. You don't have to believe that. We get to believe whatever we want, and whatever we think over and over and over and over again, those become our beliefs. Those become sort of like our aura, or like who we are. So what is it that you want to believe about yourself? What do you want to think about yourself? Because you don't have to think that you're unlovable. You don't have to think that you're unworthy. You can, but then you're probably not going to want to be by yourself, and you're not going to want to hang out with yourself because you're telling yourself such mean things. I know, and I've done it before, and I'm not saying it's okay. Like, we're just learning this stuff as we go, right? And that's why I have this channel, so that we can talk about these things that go a little bit deeper. And it's okay to have these negative feelings sometimes. It's all right, but just question it. Question it, and then ask yourself, out of all these thoughts in the whole wide world that we could think, why would we choose that one? Why would you choose the one that, like, I'm a sinner, I'm deserving of death, God doesn't love me? Why would you choose that? Because we get to choose to believe whatever we want. That's the freedom we have. That's when they're talking about freedom, that's what they're talking about. It's a lot of thought freedom too. And when you're thinking to yourself, I am kind of lovable. Can you imagine how you might show up in the world if you actually believe that you were lovable? You should try it. Okay, so just notice it, be aware, because awareness is the first step. Just being really curious about your brain, like, interesting brain. I wonder why you would tell me that I'm unlovable. Is that coming from the Jehovah's Witnesses? Or is that coming from somewhere else? Where's that coming from? Is that true? Do you want to keep believing that? Is that serving you? Yeah, just ask yourself, okay? And until tomorrow, I'll leave you with that. And I hope that you have a great time being alone and not lonely. All right. Bye, everyone.